Hey, Nerdsing here, and in this video I'd like to share how I set up and position this popular Zoom H2n recorder to record live music, specifically Sikh devotional music known as Keertan. Just to introduce the recorder a little bit, it's a very popular recorder for this kind of activity of recording atmospheric music. It's cheap enough as it's a kind of a low to mid-entry level recorder at about £140 at the moment on Amazon. This is known as an atmospheric recorder, so it has microphones all around the recorder picking up whatever is loudest in that area. So this isn't good for kind of interviews if you're trying to just capture somebody's voice, but it's very good for picking up generic kind of atmospheric sound. So on the top of the recorder, it has 4 settings of how you want the recorder to capture sound, whether it's from one side or around the whole area. On the other side, you have the gain, which is like the sensitivity of the microphones, and the menu settings, and this is where the on-off switch is. And on the other side you have some inputs there if you want to plug in a lavalier mic, for example, if you want to have a headphone jack out to listen to what it's recording, and you've got power there. This can also double up as a USB input to your computer if you actually want to use this as a microphone, for example if you were on Skype or FaceTime, and then you've got some volume buttons here. On the front there is a screen where you can look at the menus and monitor the audio, and then the record button is on the front. So on the bottom of the recorder you have a tripod mount and also a full-sized SD card slot, which is where you would record your audio onto, and this H2n can take up to a maximum of a 32GB SD card. That's a full-sized one. So on the back of the recorder you have a slot here, and the recorder takes 2 AA batteries. So now just to go into a bit about the battery life of the recorder. Well, with a full set of non-rechargeable batteries, the recorder will last like 18 hours. I recorded the whole of Manchester 2016 Samagam. That's Thursday evening, Friday morning, evening, Saturday morning, and the Rensabai on one set of batteries. So it's insane for battery life. I now have switched to rechargeable batteries, and as I said, you can actually power the recorder through this USB port, so you can actually bypass the batteries completely, and you can even use a power bank as well, but I would still keep batteries in there. That's why I use rechargeables, so it's always got power, but if there was a power cut or if your power bank ran out of juice, then it would switch to the batteries. So similarly with the other Zoom recorders, which hopefully you'll create tutorials, set of videos in the future, Zoom H6 takes 4 AA batteries, which I have rechargeable ones in there, but just like the H2n, I will power it off a power bank, the same USB connection here, and if that power bank runs out or if you lose power, it'll switch to the batteries. And similarly with the Zoom F8, which now I'm recording with more regularly, it has 8 XLR inputs, which is awesome. This recorder takes 8 AA batteries, but in a similar way you can power it. You know, just running it off the batteries, you have a battery signal there of 3 bars, so when it gets to 1 bar, you don't really know when it's going to run out. It doesn't flash red or anything like that, so that is a bit of a worry. So if you can run it off power, then that would be better, or just keep an eye on it. When you get to 1 bar, then you can switch out the batteries. But on the whole, battery life on the H2n is fantastic. Just to conserve battery life, we can actually change how long the backlight of the recorder stays on before it switches off automatically, and we can do that by going to menu and then navigating to system and then backlight, and then I have it on 15 seconds, so I can see whilst I'm setting up the recorder what I'm doing, and then soon after I press the record button, the backlight's going to switch off. You can still see the text without the backlight, but then that does conserve battery life when you're recording. Okay, so on to memory. So with a 32GB SD card, I mentioned that's the maximum SD card size you can use with the H2n. If you record in WAV, which is an uncompressed format, in 16-bit, you can get about 50 hours of recording, so that's ample really. And we record in WAV because then when we get into the editing phase, then we can manipulate that audio a bit more, and then when we export our edited audio with all our effects and filters, how we want to make the Keertan sound, then we would export that as an MP3, and then it's at that point it would be compressed. It would be a smaller file size, and then that's what we would share on SoundCloud on our websites for users to listen to. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I set up the recorder to record Keertan. Zoom make an awesome user manual on this, so this isn't the only way that you can set up the recorder. I've been using this for about 8 years now, and I found this to be a good way of setting it up for Keertan. As I said, this is a atmospheric recorder, so if you have a lot of shine, a lot of high frequency sound, then it's going to pick up that. If you have a lot of people talking in the background, it's going to pick up that. It's going to pick up whatever's loudest, really. So we'll get later on to the video about placement of the recorder, which is really important to get a nice quality sound. Okay, let's get into it. So as I said, on the right hand side of the recorder is the on button, and we just press and hold and slide that down and let go, and then the recorder will switch on. Now this doubles as a hold switch, so once you've got your recorder set up and you've pressed the record button, you can slide this up and that sets it into a hold position. If you press any buttons, it won't actually do anything to the recorder, so this can kind of, this is like a safety mechanism, and then you can just slide it down and that will take it out of the hold mode, and then you can play with the settings if you want. Okay, so at the top of the recording screen, you can see that the timer is set to 0. If I press the record button, then you can see that the timer will start, and that means it's recording, and you've got the red light at the top there. On the top right, you've got the battery level. You can see we've got 2 bars left, and we can see that it's recording, and then you can see what the file name is there, and we can see that it's going to be a WAV file. Then you can see the audio meters there of the level of sensitivity. So if I actually change the gain now on the right hand side of the recorder and increase it, then you will see as I increase the gain, then the meters will increase. Then at the bottom you can see what bitrate we are recording in, and on the bottom right you can see that there's an SD card plugged in and how much time, recording time, is left on the SD card. Okay, so let's go into the menu and set up the recorder to record it in WAV format in the bitrate we'd like it. So if we press the menu on the right hand side of the recorder, and then we can scroll down to record, and then if we click on record format, then I'm selected on the absolute highest quality. That's the WAV 16-bit. My mistake there, I didn't mean to say the highest quality, I meant to say the highest setting in this list. However, this recorder is capable of recording in a much higher quality, up to 96 kilohertz at 24-bit, but that's going to make your file sizes huge, and because we are going to be compressing our WAV files into MP3s, I wouldn't say it's worth it. So 44.1 kilohertz at 16-bit, I would say is sufficient for the type of recording that we're going to be doing. With the slider on the right hand side, then you can navigate up and down and then press it in to actually lock that in. And then if I press menu and menu again, then I'll come back to the main screen. On the top of the recorder, I've chosen MS. Okay, so this is the microphone selector, and please check out the manual on this for more on this. The MS setting activates the microphones behind the recorder and then around it as well. So if we actually, on the main recording screen, just toggle down on the slider on the right hand side, then you can see here on the MS side mic level what level of degrees to each side you are recording. So you don't want this too much, because you're going to pick up then too much atmosphere, maybe people speaking in the background. We want to have it directed at the Keertan, so I keep it on S plus or minus 0. In other words, you're having 60 degrees either side of wherever the recorder is facing. That's what it's going to capture, because if it's any more than that, then you're just going to pick up background noise, possibly even fans that are placed on the side. You don't want to capture that too much. Okay, so on to the gain. Depending on the volume of a Keertan, so if it's a current Keertan, quite loud, it's quite busy, lots of people singing, then we can have the gain, I would say, on about between 4 and 5, so 4.5 I'd probably stick it on. That's good for loud, Keertan. Then if it's spoken voice, say if it was a guitar discourse, then you can notch it up to 6. But the rule of thumb is that if your recording is quiet, that's no problem, because in post, when we edit, we can increase the volume with no difficulty whatsoever. The problem occurs is when you've recorded it too loud, your gain is too high, and then your recording is distorted. Let me show you an example of this. So when it comes to distorted audio, that is very difficult, near to impossible to fix. So rule of thumb is wherever you are, when you place the recorder in front of what you're recording, set your gain, have a look at the levels, and if they are between -12 and -6, you don't want to be getting close to 0, then you're good, because you can always increase afterwards. So quieter is better, but too loud is not good, so you want to keep it as quiet as possible. So if you know that the music, the Keertan is going to get loud, then just tap it down a notch, and even if it's on 3 or 4, that's no problem, you can always increase it after. Okay, so the recorder is set up, we've set the gain, we've positioned the recorder. Now all we got to do is hit that record button there. So we hit the record button and we know it's recording because there's a red light on the front and there's also a red light on the back. So if we had it on a different setting, like 4-channel, then there would be a red light on this side of the recorder as well, because it'd be recording everything. So just to note here that this is the front of the recorder. When we choose MS, it's this side of the recorder that's actually recording, right? So in this situation, I would face the recorder such that the music is happening on this side, not on this side, right? For the MS setting. So we put it in front, and remember, this is a stereo atmospheric recorder. So if I put the recorder like this, it's only going to pick up things from the left-hand side channel. So we want to actually make sure that this is completely perpendicular, a 90-degree angle to the position of the Keertanis. So if that is kind of the line of the stage or the whatever you're recording, then you don't want it at an angle like this. You want it exactly perpendicular, so that when you listen to it in headphones, you get a balanced audio. So say if you have a percussionist, a tabla player on this side, you will find that the right hand channel will be louder. That's okay, you can, we'll get to that next when it comes to positioning of the recorder. So we've positioned the recorder, we press the record button. I then am going to check that, is it recording? Absolutely, definitely. So I'm just looking at the timer, making sure it's going up. Gonna just quickly check that battery level. Are we okay? We're on 3 bars, no problem. 2 bars, okay, maybe it's only a 2-3 hour event. If we know it's gonna be an all-night event, then maybe consider changing the batteries within a few hours or plugging in a power bank. I'm gonna check the bottom right-hand corner to make sure there's plenty record time left. And then finally, I'm gonna check the levels to make sure it's not too loud. So these levels, you can see it says L and R, that means left and right. So I'm gonna check real quick that the balance of the recorder is okay. And then I'm good to leave it. Okay, so now let's talk about the positioning of the recorder. So my experience, when I'm at an event, I'm gonna be thinking about these next things. So I'm gonna be thinking about the height of the recorder, the angle, the position, and the distance away from what I'm recording. So this video is really tailored for recording Keertan, okay? But you can then adapt this to your situation. But for Keertan, if you have the recorder too low, it's gonna pick up the vajja and it's gonna pick up the tabla too much, right? If you have video cameras recording the event and you have your recorder too high, you might actually cover the face of a singer, of a Keertan or of a percussionist at WG in the camera shot, so you have to be very considerate of this. But you do want the height as close to head height as possible, so you're picking up more of the vocal than the actual instruments themselves. Because this is an atmospheric recorder, it will pick up the Vajra very clearly, and the tabla of course too. Okay, so on the position, now done a lot of trial and error with this, and what I found to be optimal is to have the recorder a little bit offset from the Keertan towards the tabla, because if you have it directly in front of the Keertan, you actually pick up too much Vajra. So just having it a little bit offset means that you will pick up a little bit more vocal, and then you'll have a nice warm atmospheric tabla sound coming into from the other side. This also helps as well if you have a video camera directly in front of the Keertan, then you're most likely for your recorder not to get in the way of a good video shot. Okay, in terms of angle, I've already kind of mentioned this, but if you do have your recorder pointing at the wrong way, then it's going to pick up more volume, more input from one side of the headphones. Then in the edit, you're going to have to compensate for that, or you might miss it completely. And then when somebody's listening to it in their earphones or in their car, you're going to hear it from one more side. So make sure the angle, again, is perpendicular to whatever you're recording, such that you'll have a more balanced sound. So finally, distance. Rule of thumb is that the closer you can get it, the better, because then it's going to pick up more of that sound and less of what you don't want, which is like the fans, the talking, and more of the atmospheric noise. Something that's quite good actually is that if there's a monitor speaker on the floor or behind the recorder, if you put the recorder in front of that, then it will pick up some of the sound from the feedback monitor, which means it's going to pick up more of the vocal that the singer, the Keertan is singing into the mic, which then can enhance your recording. So that's another tip for you there. So finally, on tripods, I use a monopod with just some small legs at the bottom. This means that it's kind of out the way. You can slot it in between the bigger mic stands, and hopefully for your video recording as well, it doesn't look too obtrusive. You want to be careful as well if you're plugging in power or a power bank. Try and tape the wire or keep it close to your tripod so that you don't create a tripping hazard, which could mean that your recorder falls over and then ruins your recording for however much time until you notice that you need to put it back. Okay, so just wrapping up this video now, just some things to consider. The placement of the recorder for me is probably the most important thing in getting a high quality audio. You can work your magic in the edit, but there's only so much you can do, right? So if you have your recorder at the back of the room, you are going to just pick up whatever's in that vicinity. So positioning and the angle is probably, I don't know, 80-90% of your work, and then with your edit you're just doing those tweaks to the volume and maybe some Shane reduction as well. So on the topic of Shane are very loud, and the Zoom H2n does pick up Shane a lot, and this is why I've switched to a little more elegant method of recording. So I'm using Zoom F8 where inputs from the microphones, and then I'm mixing it with this atmospheric, because the Shane are often too loud. In the edit you can actually reduce the volume of the Shane, and I will show you in a tutorial, maybe it's already out when you're watching this video, of how to reduce the Shane, but there again, there's only so much you can do in the edit. So if there are a lot of Shane, that is something to keep in mind, and you can maybe look at repositioning your recorder to suit so that the recorder doesn't pick up the Shane too much. Another thing to keep in mind is that if it's an event where it's busy, it's hot, and somebody sticks a fan that's rotating right next to your recorder will pick that up. The Zoom H2n will pick this up. So if you buy the Zoom H2n with the accessory pack, comes with a windshield, definitely make use of that, stick that on top, and that will help you with blocking fan noise. Okay, just to conclude this video, I hope you learned something valuable from it. 90% of the recordings on Scottish Seeks, which is a Keertan website which I've been involved in running for the last 10 years, since 2007, they are recorded by this H2n. It's never failed me, it's never corrupted a file. So for its price, for its size, it is so good, it's so worth it. and it's great little recorder, and it's just a workhorse really. It's easy to use, easy to set up, as I've shown you in this video, and if you're just getting into recording, this is a great recorder to start with. I did say it's atmospheric and you can't record voices with it, but you know, if you are like say a university student, you can stick this in front of a lecture and it will pick up a decent sound too. I've done that myself. I have mentioned that this isn't the best, you know, with H2n. You can do a lot with in the edit to reduce the H2n, but of course, because this is an atmospheric recorder, it is going to pick up whatever is loudest, and if there's a lot of H2n jumped in, then it will pick up that. So I now use this Zoom H2n recorder with either the Zoom H6, or if I'm doing something a bit more elaborate, then the Zoom F8 in conjunction. So you can use this as a recorder to start off with, and then if you're starting to get into recording, or you're being asked to do more you know, seva, then you can actually use these recorders together to create a really decent sound. And in my video about the Edinburgh broadcast, check out that, because I talk about how what the difference in sound is between the H2n and the H6 and H2n together, and it's quite phenomenal what you can do with that. So just some final tips: make sure your gain is always quieter than it needs to be, because you can always increase that later on in your edit. Be sure to record in WAV. You can, you know, with the 32GB card, you got 50 hours of recording there. You got an uncompressed format there, which you can work with in an edit and then export to MP3 after. And finally, positioning is everything, so keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about recording. I hope you enjoyed and learned something in this video. If you did, give it a like, comment below for your experiences of recording, any advice or tips you'd like to share, or any questions you have, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Nerd Sing out.